So Matty from City Watch has joined us here at Oddschecker, and we're going to look back at last season for Manchester City and ahead at the coming season and what you can expect. Firstly, let's talk about last season and presumably, I think I know the answer. How does it rank for you in terms of Manchester City Premier League seasons?
Well, obviously the best season I've ever seen as a City fan. Growing up we weren't great, as everyone knows, but last season was just incredible. We only lost one game at home all season that I saw, and it was just mesmerising football at times. You just almost had to sit back in your chair and just wow, you've got to admire Guardiola for the football that he's brought to England and to Man City, and I think for us it's just a pleasure to watch and just enjoying it so much. Were
you surprised by how good you were? I know that he was obviously building this team that was going to be charged with winning the league, but were you surprised by how easily you did it and the kind of football you played?
I was surprised at how easily we won it. I wasn't really surprised at the way we played, because you could sort of see elements of it in the first season, but he didn't really have the players to sort of do what he wanted to do. So he had 4 ageing fullbacks who couldn't bomb down the wing. They couldn't get back quickly because we got counter-attacked a lot, and that's why he brought in Walker and Mendy. I know a lot got said about the fees that he paid, but especially with Walker, it's shown that it was a good signing, and I think he needed to do it. We hadn't spent any money on fullbacks since 2009, 2010, something crazy. But going back to your point, I was very surprised at the other teams more than I was surprised at us, because a lot of the times we would sort of just dominate the ball and no one would even make an attempt to come and get the ball off us. They'd just sit back and try and stop us scoring as many as we could, rather than trying to score against us. I think Liverpool were the exception to that, of course. They've got the perfect model to attack us. But apart from that, teams like Man United and stuff, you expect more from them, especially at Old Trafford, but just didn't see it.
It's a nice early dig at United there before that coming up. You see a lot on social media, mainly from fans of teams like United, who claim that Guardiola, would be nothing without the checkbooks that he's given. Having seen, him develop this team, what would you make of those statements?
I understand the argument to an extent, because obviously he's spent the most amount of money of anyone in the last few years, but I don't think money guarantees success, as United fans themselves will probably see. Just because you spend 80 million on a midfielder or 80 million on a striker doesn't mean you're going to walk the league. Lukaku, I don't think he's a bad sign. I think he's done well for them, but for the price they paid, you're expecting a lot more. I don't want to talk too much about United specifically, but I don't think money guarantees success, and although to an extent he has spent money, which can't be argued, but I think the results are sort of proving why he spent the money, just because of the dominance that we've been able to have.
And we look at the summer activity so far. Riyad Mahrez is the only arrival of any note, the only person who's going to play in the first team. Is that surprising to you? Or do you think that's all you really needed, a bit of support in that area, in wide areas?
It was a little surprising, because obviously there was the odds on Jorginho to move to City we were the favourites for ages, and then all of a sudden Chelsea came in and almost took him from under our feet. Same with Fred, really. We were the favourites for him, and he ended up going to United. And I think City have adopted a bit of a different transfer policy now, where if the player doesn't want us first, we're not going to pay over the top to try and get him in. So I'd say I am a little surprised that we haven't brought in another midfielder, because Fernandinho's 33 now. He is getting on, and to play that many games, and he's so crucial to the way we play as well. So it is a little surprising, but the Mahrez one, we all saw that coming for quite a while. Really good signing. So I don't know if we'll maybe bring in a midfielder. Claudio Gomez has just been brought from PSG. He was the captain of the under-18s. So there is a potential for him to sort of cover for Fernandinho, but I don't know if that's too much too soon for him.
Do you think there's a chance you could still be going into the market in the next week or so to bring in midfield reinforcements?
Possibly. There's been a couple of rumours, maybe Kovacic from Real Madrid, Pjanic from Juventus, that have sort of been talked about a little bit, but with the prices that they're quoting, I can't see us, especially Pjanic. I think City have denied it themselves, which is surprising for them. They've denied it twice, so I don't know. We'll see.
And I know you've probably seen a fair few of your games in pre-season, your friendlies these days. I think Premier League fans watch as many friendlies as they do of their club's league games. Any difference in the system you're going to be playing? Any difference in personnel?
Well, two of the friendlies, it was a bit too late at night because obviously it's America, so I didn't catch them. I only caught a half of the Bayern Munich game because that was a 12 kick-off, and at half-time I was just too tired. But
not that exciting then, yeah.
No, well, we were 2-1 down, which was the annoying thing, and then for once. But no, I can see us reverting to a three at the back a lot more this season. I said we might do this at the end of the season. I think next season we might do that. He's done that a bit in pre-season. Obviously, it's not a lot of the first team aren't there. It's a lot of the youngsters. So I don't know how much you can read into it when it's not your first 11 players. I think there was only Leroy Sané and Bernardo Silva who came in for the last one. But obviously a good chance for the youngsters. I know Mourinho had a little dig saying that his players weren't there. So he said something about Sanchez not being happy with the players around him. But Pep was over the moon with how his youngsters had shown him what they can do. So I guess that's one positive to not having all your players available. And
one player who did come in January was Aymeric Laporte. Looks very impressive as well. It looks like you've got good competition for places at centre-back. I mean, who do you see, presuming it is a forward at the back, who do you see being your first choice duo?
It's very tough. I think John Stones had a good World Cup, but the back end of last season he wasn't as sharp. He had an injury midway through the season, so I wouldn't expect him to start straight away. Otamendi had a shaky World Cup, but he was brilliant for us last season, so I would expect it to perhaps be Kompany and Otamendi at the beginning, but I wouldn't expect it to stay that way all the way through the season. And obviously with different competitions, different players will come in, but I expect it to be them two to begin with.
And looking at the other end of the pitch now, there are odds out on who will be Manchester City's top goal scorer, and that is obviously a difficult question given the strikers on offer and also the goal scoring midfielders. To sum them up, Aguero is the even money favourite, Gabriel Jesus 9-4, Raheem Sterling 8-1, Leroy Sané 9-1, Riyad Mahrez 10-1, and then you're getting into the Silvers who are 16 and 20-1. So do you think that Aguero is a justifiable favourite there, or is this going to be the season where Gabriel Jesus finally barges his way through to become first choice striker?
I'm not surprised that Aguero's the odds-on favourite because you know what you're going to get with him, and he's always capable of scoring 20-30 goals a season, so I'd never write him off. This is the potential season for Jesus to sort of come out of his shell a bit and show exactly why we paid 30 million for him. He didn't have a great World Cup. I don't think he scored, or he might have scored one goal, but I know a lot of Brazil fans weren't happy that Firmino wasn't starting, which is understandable, but he does a lot apart from scoring, so that's something he needs to add to his game. But at the minute I would probably say Aguero is the rightful favourite. And
there's been a lot of talk that Pep doesn't fancy Aguero, a lot of talk that he's going to get sold. I think it's the first window in a long time there haven't been rumours that he's going to be making way. Do you buy into that, or do you think that he's still as important as ever and still as good as ever?
I still think he's such an important player for us. There has been rumours in the past, and I don't think him and Guardiola get on that well, but he does a job and he plays brilliantly. And I think especially the second season you could sort of see him adapting to the way Pep wanted to play, a little more chasing the ball, working hard and giving that link up. So I can't imagine, unless, because obviously he's got injury problems he has in the past, I can't imagine him getting less than 20 goals if he stays fit.
Looking forward at kind of next season, the season coming, should call it this season now, I guess. Man City, you are 8-11 favourites to win the league. I mean, if you look at Oddschecker, you can see the difference in prices. And one firm having you 4-7, which is obviously a lot shorter. Liverpool are the 4-1 second favourites. Manchester United 8-1 third favourites. Chelsea next up at 14s, and Tottenham 18-1 with Arsenal clearly sixth in the running at 25-1. So that suggests that Liverpool are your closest rivals there in terms of the league title, with Manchester United next up, and then the others, the London clubs. As a fan looking at it, do you think that you're justifiably such a short price to go and win it again, and also do you agree that Liverpool are the team that you have to beat?
I think we did a podcast at the end of last season, sort of looking onto this season, and I said Liverpool would be the ones who would challenge us probably as close as they can. It's difficult to write us off because 19 points is a huge gap, and it's difficult to see how a team can make up that gap. I know it's a completely different season, but the fact that we dominated so much, I think it's justified that we are the favourites to win it again. But But obviously, as we've seen in the past, I don't think a team have retained the title for 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So it is an extremely difficult thing, and obviously we've not strengthened that much. We've only brought in one player. Mendy, you could argue, is a new signing. He only played 3 or 4 Premier League games last season for us, so he's almost a new signing. But I expect us to go and win the league again. It might sound a bit cocky or a bit arrogant, but because of that 19-point gap, I just can't see a team catching us. But Liverpool are the ones, I think, if anyone was going to, they could.
Is it that game in the back end of last season? I mean, obviously, the first game when you faced Liverpool last season was a good one for you guys, and then you were obviously beaten. Does that give a bit of needle going into this season? Does that provide a bit of rivalry between the two teams?
Potentially. I think the 5-0 was, how do I say it? It wasn't justified. I don't think. Obviously, they had a red card early on and they were playing well in the game, and I think it would have been a lot closer if that red card hadn't happened. And then obviously we saw in the Champions League games and in the 4-3 that they can be the team to hurt us. But it's not them against us that I worry about. It's Liverpool against maybe the smaller teams where in the past they've struggled to beat, say, Crystal Palace or Brighton. They're the sort of games where it's great when the Anfield Cop are up for it and the atmosphere affects players and it drives them on. But in them games that are a bit flat, where they don't look at the best, that's where they've always struggled in the past. So if they can sort of get rid of that and just blow teams away like we have, then I think it'll be very close.
And as a City fan as well, you've seen more of Maurizio Sarri style of football than most people, given the fact you played them a couple of times in the Champions League with Napoli. Does his arrival, I mean, they play an unbelievable brand of passing football as Napoli team. Does his arrival at Chelsea give you any concern?
I think it does a little bit, because he's a really good manager and they've strengthened well. To me, it depends on the players that they've got at the minute. If Courtois leaves, if Hazard leaves, if Kante leaves, there's not long left in the transfer window, and I've just heard that Kante might be signing a new contract, making the highest paid player at Chelsea, which would be good for them. I don't know if they've got enough. They are the team that when they get a new manager, they sort of look like a brand new team, and then second season they just fall off. So perhaps they could challenge, and they've strengthened well with Jorginho. I'm not sure though. I don't think they've got enough to challenge City and Liverpool. But he's a great manager, and when I watched Napoli against us last season, he plays a similar style to Pep, and they play really good football, and they could have beat us, but Gulam got injured and that sort of affected their game. But they do look a really good team.
Before we get back to City affairs, I'm going to give you a chance to stick the knife into United.
I wouldn't do that.
I mean, surely Jose Mourinho must be ranking as one of your favourite United managers ever at the moment.
Second to David Moyes. He seems to have lost the plot of it a little bit, and there was once upon a time an argument between Pep and Mourinho, like which was better, and I'd say that's completely evaporated now, because he just sort of looks like an angry old man. It's bizarre, because I think if Pep had the team that he has, he would be able to do a lot more with it, because they have some fantastic players, United, there's no doubt in that. And they've strengthened well as well with Fred, and they've brought Sanchez in, and they've brought a few players in, and they've got a really, really good squad, but he just doesn't seem to bring the best out of him, and it's bizarre. And I don't know if he'll even last the season at this point. He could prove me completely wrong and go and win the league, and then I look like an idiot.
That'd be classic Jose, wouldn't it?
Exactly. But yeah, at the moment it just doesn't seem like he's happy. It doesn't seem like there's a bit of friction in the camp, and obviously it's not bad for us, but we've just got to worry about ourselves.
I mean, the other tournament that arguably is probably more important to City this season, the Premier League, is of course the Champions League, the one that's always got away. Man City are currently 6-1 favourites to win the Champions League, with Barcelona 13-2. Juventus, I mean, that is just the Ronaldo effect, 7-1, third favourites. They'd normally be at least double that price, and incredible to see Real Madrid as low as 9-1 to win it, which is bigger than Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain.
Ronaldo effect again.
Exactly, yeah. It's been frustrating for City in the Champions League in recent years. Has it become the fact that the Champions League is now more important than the Premier League, and winning that is the golden egg that you have to chase?
Yeah, I agree to an extent. It's become, there is definitely pressure there for us to win the Champions League because of sort of like the brand and expanding and all that sort of thing, but obviously it's the one that we haven't got yet. This is probably our best chance yet, so I can understand to an extent why we're favourites. Got a great squad, and obviously that Liverpool draw was unfortunate for us because if there's one team that was going to beat us, it was going to be them. But I honestly would have fancied us a little more against Madrid, and they ended up winning it. So it is bizarre how it works, but there's some great teams in that competition, and it's just a lottery. I can't sit here and say, yeah, we're going to win it, because anything can happen in the Champions League.
What do you think? I mean, I know you said you were unlucky with the draw, but the fact remains, you still lost to a team over 2 legs that you finished so far ahead of in the league. What's got to change at City to make sure that you do turn your dominance domestically into European success?
I think that might be part of the reason why Mahrez was brought in, just to give us that extra strength in an attacking forward, because I think we only had 1 shot on target against Liverpool in 2 games, which is just unacceptable. I don't know if there's a little bit of fear. I can't imagine that our players playing so well in the league can go into a Champions League tie worried. But I would expect us to get close. I mean, our players aren't even at their peak yet. That's the exciting thing for me as a City fan at the moment, is you think, how can this get better? But it could, because a lot of our players are in their young 20s, and they could easily get better, and then you just wonder where we can take it from there.
Who would you want to avoid? I mean, you said that Liverpool was a bad one over 2 legs. Out of that, I mean, bigger than Real Madrid, you've got Liverpool, Atleti, United, Tottenham, Napoli. I mean, who of those guys do you think are the strongest in Europe going into the Champions League? Talking as favourites.
You can't ever look away from Barcelona, obviously with Messi, and they've made a good few signings as well. I would probably want to avoid them, but I still think we could give them a game. Liverpool, just want to avoid them. They're almost like our bogey team. I dread playing against Liverpool. And maybe Atletico, I think they've strengthened well. They've brought in Lamar, Gelson Martins. I think they'll be a really good side. They're always a difficult team to beat for anyone because of the way Diego Simeone sets them up. So I'd probably want to avoid them 3 out of the lot, but can't really, unless you do in England and just walk through. You're going to have to beat one of them. Yeah, exactly.
On to the first game of the season now domestically, but we'll ignore the Community Shield. I think is and it's live on Sky on the Sunday afternoon away at Arsenal. Probably not an ideal game first up. I mean, you are as you expected. You are just a shade of odds against, so pretty heavy favourites with Arsenal 5-2 and the draw about 13-5. But Unai Emery's first game, the first game post Arsene Wenger, you think, unlike when Sir Alex Ferguson left United, there'd probably be a section of the crowd really excited about this new era.
Definitely.
How do you go into this, and are you optimistic?
It's interesting because I think the last season or 2 we've sort of fancied our chances at Arsenal, sort of rubbed our hands at the prospect of it. But I think with Unai Emery coming in, it'll be a whole different challenge. And I think he's strengthened well, and first game under the new manager in their stadium, it'll be a very difficult game, and I think they've had quite a good pre-season. Don't think they've had as many players left out due to the World Cup, so they might be a bit fresher. So I've spoke to a few City fans and they've all said we'll take a draw. Obviously some City fans after last season will think no, we should blow them away, but it's a different Arsenal to the one we beat 3-0, and I think there'll be a difficult test. And then our next away game is Wolves, who obviously have made some brilliant signings, so 2 really tough away games to start the season. Just
looking now, Sky Bet have got some request to bets, which is where City fans presumably have got in touch with them and asked for some bets. Well, I think some of them, such as Manchester City to score under 60 Premier League goals at 250-1. That may not have been a City fan asking for that.
I won't be getting on that.
I've just seen one that is Manchester City to go unbeaten at 50-1. Obviously, there were times last season where that was a lot shorter.
Yeah.
I mean, is that feasibly a possibility, or are you not going to answer that question in case this is brought up in a couple
of
weeks'
we're going to do it. We're going to go unbeaten, lose to Arsenal first game. I hate to sound pessimistic, but I think our chance was last season. If we were going to go unbeaten, I think it would have been then. I think it will be very difficult to top the amount of points we got this season. There was a few games where 90th minute winners and we got a little bit lucky, like you have to do when you win the league. but I think it will be very difficult to maintain that level or even improve that level. And as long as Liverpool away is in the fixture list, I'm not going to say we're going unbeaten. so but we'll see. It could happen.
Yeah, a bit of a shorter price, but an interesting one maybe for fans throughout the season is City to score a goal in every game at 4-1, which maybe looks a bit more interesting. I mean, the way you play and your attacking style, could see that happen. I
could see that happening. I think 4-1 might be a little bit short odds, but I could easily see us scoring in every game. But there's always a chance team parks the bus and you just can't break them down. Everyone has them games, so maybe we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, anyone watching can go on our site on oddschecker.com and find in the specials. You'll see all these bets. And another one I'm just going to point out before we move on to something else is could be appealing to City fans. City to score 100 plus Premier League goals and Manchester United to finish outside the top 4 is 10-1, which could be a good one to keep you ticking over the season.
That's an interesting one. That could go either way. United are always a surprise. You never know how they're going to do. I wouldn't write them off for the top 4. 100 goals is easily achievable for us. But whether, again, it's about maintaining them levels. I think we scored 104 last season or something. So to do that again is going to be difficult, but it's very possible. So it might be a good bet to get on.
A final word just on, we're going to look at the PFA Player of the Year betting. I mean, it's very early to do that, obviously, a year before. But the reason I want to do that is just to ask you about 2 players who we haven't really spoken about so far, in Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva. Presumably 2 of your greatest players, not only in the last few years but in history. How do they compare? How do they rank for you? And who can you see having a good season coming up?
I think David Silva will slightly drop off a little bit this season. He's getting quite old now. I think he's still a fantastic player for us, and he was tremendous last season, especially with the things going on in his personal life. So probably my all-time favourite player for City. But I wouldn't expect him to have the impact that he had in previous seasons. And I think Pep's mentioned it himself about how he might play a little bit more next season. Kevin De Bruyne, incredible player. Last season he just took it to another level, and I think he was the best player in the league, maybe bar Salah. And I expect him to continue, and I would expect him to get our Player of the Year again next season.
Do you think that's his best role in that kind of deeper midfield role rather than that wide?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's got a fantastic cross on him, so playing him wide is ideal, I suppose. But in the centre, he can just create something from nothing. We saw it in the World Cup. We see it when he plays for City. Just some of the through balls he can do, and even the finishes that he's capable of. He's an all-round incredible player. I love watching him. I think he'll be great next season.
I completely agree. And the reason why I asked you is because there's an unbelievable price here of 12-1 that De Bruyne wins PFA Player of the Year.
Wow.
Which and you think if City are odds-on favourites to win it, that seems like a massive price. Just to close now, I'm going to ask you a final question, not related to betting. I just want to, so we can play this back in a year's time. How many trophies did Manchester City win this season? Not including the Community Shield. So we've got the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, Champions League, or Europa League. I'm not going to say which.
No,
go for 4.
No, I'd say 2 again.
2. Which 2?
God, that is putting me on the spot. We'll say.
I can't. You already said the Premier League.
Yeah, so I can't see us repeating the Premier League FA Cup double.
So basically Carabao Cup or Champions League.
Oh no, sorry, we won the League Cup. I'll go Premier League FA Cup.
So you've heard it here from Matty first. City are going to win the domestic double. Pep Guardiola is going to be manager of the season, and Kevin De Bruyne is going to be player of the season.